Well, I'll say this. I think 33K by July is more viable and possible than ever. It's alive and well. I'm here to report 33K by July 2021. I don't think it's likely we'll see any sort of bear market anytime soon. We're in multi-year bull market territory. This is good for ETH. This is good for alts. This is good for all of crypto.
This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Today's podcast is brought to you by Leverage, a new fully featured decentralized futures exchange without compromise. Are you ready to trade the future of crypto today? Well, Leverage is a DEX, so you can trade with your keys and sign orders just with one click, and Leverage is fast. Yes, indeed, Leverage is powered by Gluon, a new layer 2 solution with the scalability and speed of a centralized exchange and the super low fees of a DEX. Yes, Leverage, the new exchange that combines the best features of CeFi and DeFi, so you can trade crypto spot or crypto derivatives with up to 100x leverage while maintaining control of your assets at all times. It's like William Gibson said, the future is already here, but in this case, it's evenly distributed and completely decentralized. Go to leverage.io, and leverage is spelled Leverj.io, and trade the future of crypto today. All right, let's get on with the show. Okay, so as you heard at the beginning of this episode, my guest today is Brave New Coin's lead analyst, Mr. Josh Olszewicz. Now, Josh and I recorded this episode yesterday, exactly 24 hours ago. And as you'll hear, at the time, Bitcoin was cruising at around 19K, 19.5K, just under the old all-time high. And Josh and I were both thinking that it was quite strange that Bitcoin hadn't been able to push through 20K, especially strange given all of the recent bullish news announcement of all this new buying pressure from retail institutions, funds, lots of different entities. Now, Bitcoin being Bitcoin, overnight, of course, Bitcoin has smashed through 20K and actually achieved a brand new all-time high 1 or 2 hours ago of US $20,890 on the Brave New Coin BLX chart. So look, we're now in open price discovery mode, and well, don't you just love to see it? Glorious, just a beautiful thing to see Bitcoin in full flight. If you are listening to this, you are probably a Bitcoiner, and hey, that is fantastic. Good for you. Give yourself a pat on the back for believing in and participating in the birth of a brand new asset class. And this is just the beginning. All right, let's get on with the show. As I say, Josh and I, we recorded this yesterday, but it's still very relevant and it's a good listen. Congrats to the hodlers. Let's go. My guest today is Josh Olszewicz. Josh, of course, is a professional crypto trader at Tekami Capital and the lead analyst here at Brave New Coin. Welcome back to the show, Josh. How are you doing?
Good. What's the distinction for professional crypto trader? I feel like that could be like the apiest of the apes or the degeniest of the degens, or just some regular schmo like me, you know? That's a big tent. That's what I'm trying to say.
I suppose it is, and well, I would just take the compliment at this point, Josh.
Right. Yeah.
I think if you're a professional crypto trader, if you have an analyst role somewhere, or you have, I don't want to say like a YouTube channel with too many subscribers, because there are a lot of non-professional traders that would fit that description, right?
Yeah, YouTube is kind of a cesspool for crypto. TikTok, surprisingly enough, is becoming another cesspool for crypto analysts and any bandwagon retail folk. But yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Did you see that TikTok video? Well, is that what you call it? Did you see the TikTok that was going around yesterday of the guy what was he saying? The non-riches and the, he was trying to describe Bitcoin as the circular Ponzi scheme, and it was very strange.
Yeah. People like the TikTok people or the Instagram people, they need content. They need to create content, and sometimes you don't always know what you're talking about, and that's an example, right?
Yeah, I do feel for the I guess the younger people, or the first time around retail traders, or the Robinhood guys, whatever, that sort of look to these guys for guidance. But that is just the circle of life, really, in investing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a small portion of those people who see that are going to actually look into Bitcoin and see what it's all about, which is good. Majority of people won't, obviously, but whatever.
Yes,
it's pretty hard to ignore Bitcoin. I think at this point, no matter who you are, I'm pretty sure most people have heard of it if you go to some random person on the street, which I would do, by the way, if Corona wasn't raging here in the United States. It'd be really interesting to do a street level survey of people. Have you heard of Bitcoin? Just to get some reactions, right?
And that is why people always talk about that. The Google Trends metric and the thinking behind that metric possibly being not such a good, accurate description of when FOMO may or may not arrive, is because now everyone does know what Bitcoin is, so they're potentially less likely to Google it from that point of view, right?
Yeah, we've seen the retail wave early on in Bitcoin's history. The 2013 to 2017. I think retail's not going to disappear, but at this point it definitely feels like institutional buying is at a fever pitch, more so than I've ever imagined. I think more so than most people imagined would happen, but it's all happening very quickly. Just fund after fund, anybody who's anybody announcing oh yeah, we put 5% of our portfolio into BTC or something like that. It's just what? Just crazy, right?
It really is. And so today, Josh, I thought, without putting too much of a structure around the show, which is often what I like to do, but I thought today, because as we record, for me, it's Wednesday, 16th of December, so it'll be the 15th for you, 10 days out from Christmas. So I thought today we could just have a little bit of a casual catch up on the year that was, and a look ahead to the year ahead. But really, it's more probably just a catch up on Bitcoin, really, because the last time you were here, Josh, so I made a note of this. We talked again on the Crypto Conversation here. It was the end of October. It was really just 8 weeks ago, so not long ago, 2 months ago, and the Bitcoin price then was around 13K. And you said on that podcast that if the current rate of change continued, you expected that by January the price of Bitcoin would be somewhere between 18 and 20K. And you said at the time, those numbers sound insane, but there aren't many reasons to be bearish right now. And you couldn't have been more right. And in fact, Bitcoin being Bitcoin effectively front ran you. But have you been surprised by the intensity of the bullish action in the last 2 months?
First of all, thank you for bringing up my own predictions that came true. I'm really bad at that. So yes, my TA or the stuff I look at tends to work out a lot. Not to pat myself on the back even more, but yeah, so the bullish action I don't think is a surprise. I think the lack of retracement and the lack of mean reversion, which is just settling down of the trend, that is a bit of a surprise.
Yes,
it's a bit of a surprise that we are literally just chilling at all-time high.
Yes.
That usually doesn't happen. Usually you have a blow off top, or you have extreme reversal, or you have extreme price discovery, and we have none of that. It's just a very, very weird scenario. The whole world is weird right now, but just looking at where we are, if you look at any all-time high for anything, it's it doesn't usually happen like this, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, so depending on, which exchange or which price chart, which index, whatever that you want to reference, but on the Brave New Coin BLX, we did hit a new all-time high. We just touched it just briefly on, I think, the 1st of December, so 16 or so days ago. And since then, we've had one minor dip, but, we're really just, as you say, chilling just a shade under the all-time high, and Bitcoin is just kind of just cruising, being a bit of a tease, because everyone is just kind of, we either want to see a massive dip and a pullback and a correction, or you just want to see that 20k level breached once and for all, right?
Yeah, we just want to see an actual, like, no doubter all-time high. We don't. It's funny, like, questioning, like you're mentioning, questioning, is it an all-time high in this exchange or this index? Is it an all-time high? We want none of that. We just want, give us 24 already, or give us 15. That's how I feel. There are so many like divergent and confluent factors right now that are, like, none of it makes sense, because, like I said already, we have institutional buying at levels we've never seen before. We have coins on exchanges at levels not seen since, like, 2018, which is an extremely bullish metric historically. But yet price is just doing nothing. It's it's very odd. The Dixie's dying, which we talked about last time. The dollar is dying. The stimulus is coming in the US. Like, all that should be extremely bullish for crypto, and yet we're just ranging for like a month here.
Yes, and because every day at the moment it seems like there is a new announcement of some kind of fund or institutional buyer or a business putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Just earlier this morning, I haven't heard of these guys, but UK-based Ruffer Investment told shareholders it had allocated 2.5% of its portfolio to Bitcoin in November. So you can see there are these fairly heavy-duty buys that are presumably taking place. And sure, I mean, you can understand, the OTC desks will presumably be busy, but eventually, something has to give here, right?
Yes, we've got all these funds buying. We've got Grayscale buying. I mean, they bought last Friday. They bought 7,600 VTC added to their fund. I don't know what their buying process is. Part of it's on Bitstamp at Gemini, I know that. But eventually, when demand outstrips supply, price should go up, right? But we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that at all.
Yeah, and so presumably then that means that there are some whales potentially, offloading some supply, but you don't know how much that makes sense either, because they would presumably be looking for the price to go higher at some point as well. But I guess it's just a natural equilibrium here, just under the all-time high, and something will give one way or the other eventually.
Well, like you said, they go to OTC. They either use what's called a TWAP, or they buy slowly over time, like DCA. Like the Michael Saylor is a good example of this.
Yes.
What they ended up doing is making like 10,000 trades or something at extremely small amounts that didn't end up moving price like at all, which is probably what's happening right now, partially with a lot of these funds that are getting in. I mean, they're not stupid. They're not going to just market buy something. They're going to buy either OTC, or they're going to do this TWAP, VWAP, whatever buying, where they can get in little by little over time, and they don't necessarily care about the price. They just care about the narrative for them, which is like insurance against inflationary currencies, or collapse of fiat currencies, that sort of thing. Like that's it's interesting seeing that from actual institutional people versus Bitcoin people or crypto people who have always had that in their head. Like to see this become a reality for the rest of the world is definitely interesting to see that flip.
Yes, very much so. And it's crazy how, back in October when we last talked, which again, only 8 weeks ago, but just shows how fast these markets can move. And even then we were talking about how the time This is amazing. The time that Bitcoin had spent above 12K was literally 61 days in its entire, 10-year price history, which is kind of mind-boggling. So the time that Bitcoin has spent above, let's say, 19K, it's not going to be, it's not very many days, but I guess, what we are seeing now is the kind of the normalization of Bitcoin at these levels, because there's no real sense of euphoria or even FOMO. It's just everyone's just like, we expect it to be here and we expect it to go much higher now. It's just normal.
Yeah, I think another big role in what's going on with price is retail access, which has also never been as high as it is. You can buy it on Robinhood, PayPal, all sorts of exchanges globally. That's obviously bullish. Just again, supply demand. If 4,000 people buy $1,000 worth of BTC, that's also going to move the needle eventually if that happens over time, over and over again. So I think collectively, again, like it makes sense that we're here. It doesn't make sense why we've not moved from here, I guess. And again, if you look at the BTC wallets across all exchanges, the amount of BTC on exchanges hasn't been this low since October 2018. And if you look at a graph of this, you see very clearly, if Link is another example, if exchange reserves go up, price usually goes down. If exchange reserves go down, price usually goes up. It's an inverse relationship, again, supply demand related. If there's nothing for sale and people are buying, price goes up. That's just the way it is. So it's weird that we're not seeing price move,
Yeah, well, maybe, I guess the only explanation that really does make sense is that someone is selling, and, there've got to be some whales out there that are just dribbling out some supply, but, eventually they will reach the limit of what they're prepared to sell at this price. And I can't really see buying falling off, then we'll have, I guess, the full freedom to go into price discovery mode. Maybe that happens next month. Josh, talk to me about, because you always talk about seasonality, right? And I think from memory, Q4 has traditionally been a really good, a high-performing month, let's say, for crypto, and Q1 less so. Now, obviously, we may be entering a new paradigm, so I don't know whether that kind of thesis still plays out or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So Q1 historically is so bad because Q4 is historically so good.
Yeah.
Q2 is historically so good because Q1 is historically so bad.
Right.
So it's usually just every other quarter we have something happen, which makes sense. So that that's why at this point I'm looking forward to Q2. I don't really care what happens in Q1, just because the expectation is for everything across the board, alts, BTC, whatever. Q2 should be the best performing quarter for sure.
Did you see, Josh, that JP Morgan put out, I don't think it was a report, some of their analysts were discussing the possibility, they projected 600 billion in potential new Bitcoin demand, and they're basing this on the announcement that I think the insurance company Mass Mutual, they made a 100 million buy, and so the JP Morgan analysts suggested that if there was a 1% allocation from these kind of companies in major markets around the world, that would represent 600 billion of new demand. And what I think is really interesting about this as well is if you just extrapolate that a little bit further, it means, let's say any one business in any particular vertical do make an allocation to Bitcoin and Bitcoin outperforms, it means that company's balance sheet or portfolio, whatever, it grows exponentially, and then that business potentially has the ability to undercut their competitors, if you see what I mean. So the game theory here means that as these companies kind of begin to announce their move into Bitcoin, at what point do their competitors say, if we don't get in, then, you know, we're going to be at a serious disadvantage.
Yeah, there's very much a keeping up with the Joneses effect there. I think it was Gandhi who said this, maybe it wasn't. I apologize if it wasn't, but first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. This was a common quote that was shared in like Bitcoin forums very early on. And I think we're at a spot where we're between fighting us and winning, because we're seeing all of these treasuries get into BTC, obviously, but we're also hearing rumors of some massive regulatory stuff potentially coming down the pipeline.
Yes.
As government officials are getting uncomfortable with, you know, the sinking ship, basically, whether it be Mnuchin or somebody at World Bank or whoever asking for, you know, some sort of regulatory clampdown on KYC AML, which we've been seeing for years on exchanges. The wild west of crypto is quickly ending, I think. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think some people are going to buck at that. But it is what it is, you know, like it was inevitable. If we're getting this big, that's just what's going to happen. Yeah. So I think we just got to roll with the punches here and figure it out. But I wouldn't get too scared, I guess, from any regulation that comes through the pipeline.
No, I agree with you, Josh, and I think you know, there are pros and cons to these arguments, and I think on balance, regulation is a good thing, because obviously it just continues to legitimize the asset class. But you know, the key point is not to over-regulate it or regulate it in a way that is harmful to the ecosystem. And I understand that, you know, various viewpoints differ on that matter. But you know, a good example of this is, I don't know if you listened to my chat with Rich Sanders from Cypherblade, Josh, and you know, speaking of the KYC stuff, you know, you would have seen the Twitter thread when he managed to pass KYC at two of the larger Chinese crypto exchanges using identities based on Borat and Taylor Swift. And as amusing as that was, it does demonstrate the inconsistency of KYC AML across the ecosystem.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think or say about it, other than you know, if you're in the US, you got to be super careful about trying to evade KYC AML stuff. Yeah. Luckily, if you're in another country, you're safer in that you can partake in certain activities like trading on FTX or Binance without worrying about, or Bittrex or any one of these others that have to sort of segregate the US from the rest of the world, you know. That's an example of overregulation to me, because it just forces people to do stuff that's illegal anyway, because they're going to do what they're going to do, you know. They're going to use VPNs, they're going to use fake identities, they're going to use fake passports. Like I've heard of it, I've heard everything, and it's going to happen, because it's like watching Netflix in the US versus New Zealand. You know, if you want to see some shows, you're going to use a VPN and you know, pretend you're in the US, right?
Well, exactly right. And you know, it's a story as old as technology, or as old as the internet, or as old as a distributed system. You know, it starts with you know, BitTorrent, and that's what a blockchain is really. You know, these things are designed to be, you know, globally decentralized distributed systems. And if you are if you're motivated and smart and you want to access that system from wherever you are in the world, it's very hard to stop that. Yeah,
you're telling the most anti-government people who exist on the planet to obey by certain rules when they have options to do otherwise. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but not that I'm advocating or condoning illegal activity, but you know, it's going to happen, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. What is maximum pain right? What would be maximum pain right now for Bitcoin? What would Bitcoin do to really hurt the most market participants?
I mean, for me, I want mean reversion. I want 15K or less. I don't know if that's like max pain for the market, but I don't know. You know, we have the end of the month coming up here, which is a big deal for futures and options markets, because they have a lot of open interest expirations coming up.
Yes.
So typically, if we're going to do something, it happens slightly before those expirations as far as volatility wise, because there's so much open interest sloshing around. It's also the end of the year, and there's certain factors that come in with that as far as options and futures. It's massive holidays and whatever else. So I think Max Payne would be like a Darth Maul style candle where we make a new all-time high and then we bust down to like 15, something like that. Max Payne is just insane volatility, I think, at this point, because for me, the expectation is 15 or less. So for me, that isn't Max Payne, but for somebody who's expecting 24, I think that's Max Payne, obviously. So I don't know. I think most people are positioned for the long side. If you look at the CME trading reports, the leveraged shorts are at an all-time high, which may be something to do with GBTC hedging or institutional hedging. I don't know, but I don't know. If you look at any report on any open interest, you'll see a variety of stuff going on right now. But the big thing is the expirations that are coming up at the end of the month, and that may trigger a new reversal in trend, which is possible, or a renewed bullish continuation, which I realize is just saying a bunch of nothing. But the big thing is paying attention to those dates and the rollovers of those contracts, which is why I have that CME chart I throw on Twitter every once in a while, just showing like these are the days that are important. Pay attention to them. I guess the other thing to say is it's important to not get like scared out of a trading position on those days, because you got to expect anything to happen. I think it's called quad witching on legacy markets on that specific time frame or set of days, because there's so much stuff going on with futures and options on those days.
Yes, indeed. And just to cover off the regulatory stuff, I think you kind of alluded to it before. There has been some speculation around, some potential. We're talking in the US here, obviously, some regulations potentially around self-custodial wallets. I don't know. Maybe that's just pure speculation, but you don't see so much chatter these days about the long-awaited and much delayed Bitcoin ETF, and part of the reason for that, I suppose, is that Grayscale has become the de facto backdoor, side door, whatever you want to call it, ETF, which whether that's a good or a bad thing, and they hold 3% of the entire Bitcoin supply due to that. But does that incentivize the SEC to maybe think, or actually maybe we do need a Bitcoin ETF? Otherwise, someone like Barry is just going to end up being the dragon sitting on all the gold.
Yeah, you think that, especially in the past few weeks and months, like the regulators seeing all the activity from all the people with money, basically their donors. I think the money speaks for itself at this point. So the more people and the more money in BTC, the better the probability prospect of an ETF, which is going to hurt GBTC. It's going to hurt newer products like BITW.
Is that the Bitwise one?
Yeah, so there's a Bitwise top 10 pseudo ETF situation. Yes. It's going to hurt all those pseudo ETFs and be better for the ecosystem at the end of the day, I think. But because even the GBTC, the way it works is it's not one-to-one as far as what you're actually buying. You're buying a small percentage of a BTC per share. Then you have to figure out the premium, and there's always a premium, and there's a 6-month withdrawal period where you have to hold it for 6 months. With BitW, it's a 12-month period and a 3% fee if you withdraw early. So I don't know ETFs very well, so I don't know if that would occur with a standard Bitcoin ETF, but those are all factors that are to be considered. The other thing about these products is normal people can't really invest in them. At least the BitW product, I think, is accredited investors only. GBTC is probably easier to access for anybody, but I'd assume the ETF would be universally accessible to anybody.
All right, well, let's go to a very quick break, Josh, and then we'll come back and we'll just get some closing thoughts on some of the other crypto sectors. We'll be back in 1 second.
Are you ready to trade the future of crypto today? Introducing Leverage, a full-featured decentralized futures exchange without compromise. Leverage is a DEX. Trade with your keys and sign with one click. Leverage is fast. It's powered by Gluon, a layer 2 solution with the scalability and speed of a centralized exchange and the low fees of a DEX. Say goodbye to exchange hacks, front-running, Ethereum network congestion, and high gas fees. Leverage, the new exchange that combines the best features of CeFi and DeFi so you can trade crypto spot and derivatives with up to 100x leverage while maintaining control of your assets at all times. Like William Gibson said, the future is already here, but in this case, it's evenly distributed and completely decentralized. Go to www.leverj.io and trade the future of crypto today. For crypto indices and benchmarking, Brave New Coin's powerful indexing engine can calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. Brave New Coin's custom indices team delivers experienced consultancy, premium data, and trusted calculation. Contact BNC today to find out more.
Okay, we are back, and I'm with my man Josh. And I said we'd just touch on a couple of other crypto sectors, Josh. So just, Ethereum. ETH is looking pretty good. The ETH narrative is strong again. Even, someone like Raoul Pal has kind of gone to the dark side to an extent, and that, while he's still very much a Bitcoin guy, he came out on Twitter and said that ETH might be bigger and its market cap in 10 years' time. I guess the thesis there being, of course, that given the size and complexity of global financial markets, if crypto does continue to make inroads into the system, then probably not going to be a winner-take-all type situation, and there will be a place for multiple settlement layers. If everything's going to be tokenized, probably doesn't make sense to do that on Bitcoin as such. Any thoughts on just Ethereum in general? What are you looking at for ETH at the moment?
Yeah, so I think the risk reward to get into ETH as just any participant couldn't be higher, because if ETH 2.0 is successful, then if proof of stake is successful, if DeFi lives to see another day, if all that is true, then ETH should be okay in a few years' time. To see it exceed BTC, I don't know, but I think if it can survive the transition, it'll be okay. But there's a reason you don't see companies saying we bought ETH, or we have an ETH treasury now. There's a reason you don't see companies say that sort of thing. There's a reason the CME doesn't have an ETH futures. It's just the ground is a little too shaky right now for the future of ETH, and I think when proof of stake transition is over, it'll be a little different, and the ETH hobbyists and meth people will disagree with me on that, but that's part of the risk reward profile. The risk is huge still, that it won't just implode. That might be a little dramatic, but the risk is there. There isn't not a risk versus BTC, or it's pretty safe to say BTC is going to exist in 5 to 10 years time, kind of as it is. Whereas ETH, I don't know, maybe there's some Cambrian explosion where, it just forks again multiple times. I don't know, whatever, but that's a possibility, right? Whereas the BTC stuff is kind of behind it at this point. So if ETH 2.0 is successful, if staking is successful, which by all accounts it looks like it will be, it'll be fine. I think ETH will do fine. I think it'll tag along with Bitcoin as it has been for the past few years. I don't know if we'll ever see an ICO situation like we did in 2016, 2017, 2018. I mean, that takes this very special set of events to happen where the whole world is trying to create something and use ETH to get into the market. So I don't know if we'll ever see that kind of bull market for ETH again. That's not to say we won't see new all-time highs. I think it'll be a little different situation.
I agree with you. I think you're right. And I think that's a very good way of understanding ETH at the moment is, the risk-reward profile. The risk is higher, but the potential reward is higher as well, just because you're taking on more risk, because Ethereum, it's a bit of a clumsy metaphor, but they are kind of building the rocket ship mid-flight. But yeah, that's just how ETH operates.
Definitely. There is currently 1.48 million ETH in the ETH 2.0 staking contract. That ETH cannot exit until 2 years from now or whatever it is when the chains merge. That's going to be another messy situation where you're going to get all the supply locked up into ETH 2.0, and then you're going to have this new coin created called Beacon ETH or something, and it's going to get traded on exchanges. Whether or not each exchange has their own price for that is going to get messy. That's not legally okay under US law as far as unaccredited investors, so US traders can't even trade it, and it's just a giant mess. And I'll just be glad when it's all over with, to be honest. But
you and me both. Well, look, there's only one place to go from Ethereum, Josh, and of course that is DeFi. And I think you're on record this year as being a little bit of a DeFi skeptic, I think, particularly from a fundamental perspective. And, if we talk about the risk-reward profile of Ethereum, I think you can, you can exponentially extrapolate that when you go into the DeFi world. But DeFi is exciting, it's exotic, it's a new financial paradigm. The risks are huge, so are the rewards. DeFi. Any new thoughts?
I don't know
perspectives?
if I said.
Are you surprised it's still here?
I'm not surprised it's still here. I think people are really good at creating casinos for people and gambling products, and that's a lot of what why DeFi exists. It's just different types of speculation and layers of speculation on speculation and lending and borrowing and collateral and all that stuff. I can't remember if I said this last time, but somebody said this. I was like, oh, that's perfect. DeFi is just like a bunch of locusts going from field to field, like eating everything and then disappearing. That's kind of what it feels like. This yield stuff that exploded a few months ago is kind of like died down now, right? And now it's kind of like the biggest, scammiest products are kind of exploding because it's like the last low-hanging fruit that's there. That's just my own opinion, but I think some of the stuff will live forever, definitely, but most of it's going to die off into nothing, just like any altcoin stuff. There certainly are people and products that seem to be doing better than others, like any Andre product, any of the merging of the DeFi land. There's been a lot of that lately, which I haven't really been following, but yeah, I don't understand it beyond just like speculation purposes and borrowing and flash loans and all this other stuff. I don't know, it's so beyond me that any of this stuff is like good for humanity. It's just beneficial for people in the ecosystem trading. I don't know.
I don't know either. Interesting.
So yeah, will it exist? Yeah, is it going to continue to do well? Probably, because people love to gamble and leverage up on stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. But to me, again, back to supply and demand, if the ETH locked in DeFi continues to decrease, that's a bad thing for ETH price. Right now, according to DeFi Pulse, ETH locked in DeFi is around 7 million ETH, which is like 6.5x the total lockup in ETH 2.0. It's like 7x the total ETH left in ICO treasuries. So if you're bullish on ETH, you want all these numbers to go up and to the right because you want as much as the supply soaked up into GBTC, into DeFi, into ETH 2.0, whatever it is that where it says this ETH cannot be sold or is difficult to sell. That's what you want for ETH if you're bullish ETH. And the thing about ETH is the inflation is still around 4%, I think, and there's just so much coin out there still that I think that's another reason why the ICO type price action just isn't going to happen anytime soon because there's just so much of it out there. You know, we can say there's all these new products and there's DeFi and blah, 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 but until the ETH is locked up like it was in ICO treasuries for a period of time, I don't think we're going to see that just insane bull run like we saw back then.
Yeah. I think also, though, maybe the counter argument to that is if there's no equivalent to the ICO phenomenon of 2017, you know, if crypto does run on narratives, and so if there's always a certain segment of the market that are looking to trade and they want you know, the bigger price movements beyond, let's say, the so-called blue chip assets, then really they're just going to be chasing the DeFi assets because that is where the action is, that's where the conversation is, and to a certain extent that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, even if it is just a simple game of hot potato, or as you described it, you know, locusts moving from field to field.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's a way to leverage up on the volatility, even though it's like binary options or something. It's just super insane. You know, this whole rug pull stuff where your investment or your whatever you have in the trading system could just disappear overnight. I mean, that to me is like criminal, right? But people, for some reason, this is acceptable and people trade this stuff anyway. I just don't understand that part. The only reason they're getting away with all these quote unquote rug pulling stuff is because it's just so pump and dumpy where the reward is so much greater than the risk, even though the risk is insanely high. That people just say, you know what, okay, let's ape into this and hope for the best. I don't know, like it's insanity. It's all insanity. It's theft, it's criminal. I hope that stuff goes away. It's not good for the ecosystem. It leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth when you lose money like that. I don't know. It's all not good.
What about a slightly side tangent, but you know, the wonderful world of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, digital art on the blockchain. So do you have any interest in this stuff? Some of the guys here at Brave New Coin are quite deep into this, I've discovered. So one of the guys here at BNC is a big Mystic Axie fan. So Mystic Axie is a blockchain game, and you can collect these. They're called Axies, but the Mystic Axies are the rare ones. They're the ones you want to collect, and they're worth a lot of money. People pay, you know, they trade them and they pay a lot of ETH for the really rare ones. And of course, you know, there's these digital art platforms are popping up, and there was, I don't know if you saw, there's an artist called Beeple. Someone paid over 700,000 for his digital art collection yesterday, I believe. You follow any of this, Josh?
Not really. Some of the NFT stuff is dangerous because it's self-dealing, where people like buy their own auctions to like mark up prices. I don't know. Yeah. NFTs, it's kind of a mix of like alternative asset art investing. Like it's like between like Beanie Babies and like sports memorabilia and sports cards. You know, if any random person, if you show them like Wayne Gretzky's rookie card, which recently sold for like 1.6 million or something, they're like, oh, this is just ink and cardboard, right? Like, so to look at an NFT on a blockchain is like, you know, ones and zeros, I guess. I don't know, but the fact that would have any value to me is strange. The provenance makes sense. The fact that you can prove that it's a one of one or whatever, you know, whatever, all the authentication. I don't know. I guess I can't wrap my head around that. I'm not on board with that at all. It's like the CryptoKitty stuff. That's, I mean, this is all NFTs.
Yeah.
They're all the same type of thing, but I don't know. Another real quick real world example is CS:GO skins, which CS:GO is a FPS game. The skins are literally just cosmetics for your weapon in the game, and those are worth a lot of money to some people as well. I don't know. I guess people will pay whatever they want. You know, if there's more buyers than sellers, if demand is there, price will go up, right? Regardless of what it is. I don't know. It's strange stuff, I guess.
It is strange, but I think it it's just, if the whole idea behind, if crypto is simply digital money for a digital world, and that's a simplistic way of understanding it, but that's how I always describe crypto to people that aren't in it, So let's say digital money for a digital world. You kind of extrapolate the world out another 20 or 30 years, and when does a Ready Player One style Oasis start to come into a metaverse style environment, and then I guess all this stuff is just becomes part of the everyday fabric of our virtual life on a long enough time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think most kids get into some sort of hobby of like trading or collecting stuff, whether it be rocks or baseball cards or whatever. But I got into Magic the Gathering, collecting and trading and playing the game early on in my own life, and I think a lot of Bitcoiners have. Mt. Gox was originally a Magic the Gathering trading card exchange, but it's funny that intersection of people that attracted the collecting itch, I guess. But even games like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Hearthstone have sort of moved to the digital realm largely and have been extremely successful. So to see something like Magic the Gathering in NFT form, I think would be huge. I poo-poo stuff like CryptoKitties and the other things you mentioned, but to see something like Magic the Gathering go NFT digital completely would be insanely massive and super successful. To see something like Pokemon or Hearthstone or anything that decentralizes the trading or tradability of those assets, I think would be really cool. I'd be interested in that. So I don't know what the mindset is for me that switches between like some random art picture versus like Magic the Gathering. But I guess because I'm directly involved in MTG stuff. I don't know. It's just interesting. Like to see MTG on the blockchain would be so cool and amazing. But to see like, these random memes that are sold for thousands of dollars on a blockchain is kind of weird to me.
Do you still dabble in Magic the Gathering?
Yeah,
now?
I do. And it's mostly, they have an online client, and that's mostly what I play now because, largely because of COVID, and inventory management is honestly the biggest reason. Just if you have to take care of cardboard for years at a time, it takes up space, and it's kind of like the gold versus Bitcoin example, like this stuff weighs. If you have a lot of this stuff, it weighs. It takes a lot of space. It weighs a lot. It's heavy. Whereas if it's digital, you can just take it wherever you want, anywhere you want. It's cheaper to store, that sort of thing. So yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, let's wrap this up, Josh. You looking forward to Christmas, New Year, a little bit of a break?
Yeah, sure. That'll be good. I feel like most of the world's been on a break for the past several months, so I don't think it'll be anything crazy. I think celebrations will be a bit more muted this year, but maybe not. Maybe there's more reason to celebrate if you're amongst the living. I don't know, but yeah, sure. I think everybody's looking forward to the arbitrary rolling of the calendar to 2021 and the new stuff that lies ahead with that.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think, obviously it has been something of a year, and most people will be ready to put it behind us. But are you a Christmas Grinch or Santa's little helper? Where are you?
I don't think I'm a Grinch. I enjoy, family gatherings, and really it's the food that's the main thing for me. I enjoy the spectacle of the food and the drink and the that sort of thing. The gifts are not a big thing for me. It's more about family time and experiences versus gifts, I guess.
Okay, parting thoughts, Josh. I don't know if you feel inclined to give any predictions, or but feel free to speculate. Anything else you'd like to add, crypto markets wise, as we close down this year? And awkwardly, we're just sitting just under 20k. So by the time I'm going to put this podcast out, I'll put it out as quickly as I can. But anything could happen from here. We could blow past 20k, or we could, as you commented earlier, we could drop back down to 15. No one knows, but close us out, Josh. Final thoughts.
Well, I'll say this: I think 33k by July is more viable and possible than ever. It's alive and well. I'm here to report 33k by July 2021. Very likely, I think. I think it is likely we see all-time highs next year. I don't think it's likely we'll see any sort of bear market anytime soon. We're in multi-year bull market territory. This is good for ETH. This is good for alts. This is good for all of crypto. Unfortunately, it's good for scams as well. So we're going to see scams that we've never seen before popping up in large numbers next year, I think, especially in DeFi scams. We're seeing all sorts of phishing scams related to hardware wallets. I think that'll continue. I think the ETH scams on Twitter and YouTube are going to continue. But that just comes with the territory. I think we will see regulations within the next 6 months that are going to look harsh and seem harsh, but end up being not that big of a deal at the end of the day. But I think you can't be more bullish than we are now, right? Like, this isn't to look back at 2013 or 2014, 2015 and say, like, this is, there's a difference between like sitting on a soapbox and predicting something's going to happen and then like actually living it. The death of the dollar, all these treasuries moving into BTC, like it's kind of crazy. It's just like dream fantasy land, but here we are.
Yeah, and look, I'm pleased that you've brought out the 33k by July call, and I didn't even need to coax that out of you. So you may have just given us given me a title for the podcast. So I'll think about that one. But yeah, I mean, it feels like you could even be underselling it. Obviously there are some fairly wild price predictions out in the market, and you have to take these things with a little bit of a grain of salt. But July is a long way away at this point, considering we were sort of 12k for 8 weeks ago, Josh, and within a blink of an eye we boom, effectively to 20k. So yeah, you could be underselling it. What do you reckon? Yeah,
I mean, you already mentioned it. We've gone from like people in Bitcoin talk and Bitcoin subreddits mentioning like 1% of the world's total currencies into Bitcoin is going to be blah, 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 like millions of dollars of Bitcoin, to JP Morgan saying 600 billion is possible.
Yes.
Like, what? Like, this is like, this is, it's crazy, right? It's crazy to see it actually happen. And it's also kind of scary because there's also this other side of the coin where any world where Bitcoin is doing well isn't necessarily a world that anybody wants to live in because it's going to be so miserable. Inflation's going to be high. There's going to be unemployment and mass unrest and all this other stuff going on, kind of what's going on now anyway. But, Bitcoin's kind of a hedge against chaos, really. And here we are.
Yeah. And as much as sometimes it's quite difficult sometimes to pull the trigger and actually buy more Bitcoin at these price levels. But when you look at the charts, at the markets, at the news cycle, at the global situation, at all the narratives, it doesn't really make any sense not to be buying Bitcoin at these levels, right?
I agree. I want lower prices for the trader in me, but other than that, I think any purchase now is going to be fine in a year's time, 3 years time, 5 years time. I think everything's going to be fine.
All right. It's a nice place to finish, Josh. Well, on behalf of all the brave new coin team, Josh, season's greetings to you and your family, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday period. in the US, and I look forward to catching up with you again, probably very early in the new year, depending on what happens with Bitcoin, because I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about. And of course, people can follow you on Twitter in the meantime, and I'm sure you'll continue to publish your analysis on bravenewcoin.com. But yeah, season's greetings to you and yours.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, let's do this again like late Q1, and we can see how right I am.
All right, look forward to it. Thank you, Josh. All the best. Bye for now. Okay, well, there you go. Thank you to Leverage for sponsoring the podcast. Leverage is a full-featured decentralized futures exchange without compromise. So if you're ready to trade the future of crypto today, Leverage is for you. It's a DEX and it's fast because it's powered by Gluon, the new Layer 2 solution that supports the scalability and speed of a centralized exchange with the low fees of a DEX. Yes, Leverage. It combines the best features of CeFi and DeFi, so you can trade crypto spot or crypto derivatives with up to 100x leverage, and you maintain control of your assets at all times. So go to Leverage, which is leverj.io, and trade the future of crypto today. All right. That's us. We are out of here. Don't forget, if you did enjoy the show, please do feel free to give us a 5-star rating and even a nice review in Apple iTunes or the Apple Podcasts app. Would certainly appreciate that. Bye for now. See you real soon. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave and New Coin.